So today we're going to talk about a solar proposal and what's in a proposal. We're going to talk about how project developers will customize your solar PV system and how we're going to determine the solar energy generation and the utility savings for that specific design for your home. As we get into energy savings, we're also going to look at the financial incentives that are at the federal and state level that make solar affordable for you. And then, as I said, please drop your questions in the chat. I'll be eyeballing them and serving them up to Patrick at the end here, but we're going to let Patrick go through the presentation and then we'll take the questions at the end. So thank you all for joining us for this discussion of what's in a solar proposal. And with that, I'll turn it to Patrick to go through the proposal.
All right, thank you, Eric. As he just mentioned, please feel free and jump in there with any questions that you have in the chat, because there's a lot of information packed in here, and the goal is to try to unpack that so everybody can understand what all goes into a solar proposal. So what do we have? We have a PV system layout. In other words, the organization of the panels on the roof or the modules on the roof, the module and inverter descriptions, solar energy generation and usage by month. We'll look at some graphs and some numbers there. Cost of the system before and then after the incentives. So the net cost will be there as well. Electrical bill savings by the month, and the estimated return on investment and the cost of the energy. First, we'll start by looking at some energy terms, and believe it or not, I've been doing this about 7 years, and it's still a little bit jumbled up between kilowatt and kilowatt hour. Kilowatt is a measurement of how big the array is or how much energy something can use. It's almost like the potential energy. I have a 10 kW array would be the correct terminology there. A kilowatt hour is a unit of energy used or produced. This is what shows up on your bill. So if you get a bill for 1,500 kilowatt hours in a month, that is where that is used correctly. So some of the energy terms that we deal with a lot in the solar world are the solar panels. We call them modules. That is interchangeable, and sometimes I'll call them both in the same sentence. Those are what is placed on your roof and captures that energy from the sun. The inverters convert that energy from DC, which is direct current power, to AC, which is alternating current, for your home to be used by your home. The AC power from the inverter provides electricity to your home, and any excess electricity is sent out to the grid. So if your home is not using the amount of energy that's being produced by the solar array, it will be sent out to the grid and back through the meter, and the neighbors get it, and Ameren charges them for it, of course. So one of the first questions we talk about usually is going to be, what are the goals that you have for your energy or for your solar project? So we look at how much energy do you use each month / year. How much energy do you want the solar to offset? Normally the goal might be 90 or 100%. Sometimes folks say, hey, look, I'm good with about half of that. How long do you plan on staying in your home? Do you plan to add an electric vehicle charger or a large electrical appliance, finish the basement, pool, hot tub, sauna, anything like that that's going to increase that usage over time? We would like to plan ahead for that if it's going to be in the near term. And then, does your utility limit energy generation? Some of the things that we consider for a solar project or that are considerations for the homeowner would be the slope and the height of the roof, the complexity of the electrical interconnection, the age and type of roof. That has an effect on the type of racking that we use, multiple photovoltaic arrays. So if your roof is sort of chopped up and we've got several different arrays facing different directions, that's something to be considered as well. We also would like a good solar window, right? So south is ideal. East-west definitely does work. We install east-west systems a lot, but they do reduce the production by about 15% or so. Shading is another one, especially in certain areas that have really old growth trees. We see some of these trees that are like 80 feet tall and provide a lot of shading. Even if you've got a perfectly south-facing roof, it might not be ideal for a solar array. And municipal / utility regulations and homeowner association rules. A lot of what we do has to go through the municipality where we pull the permits, and also through the utility where we apply for interconnection to their grid. So there's a lot of rules and regulations. Every place is somewhat different. And so we do take care of that for you as well. On page 2 of the solar proposal, we're going to look at the PV system details and the layout of the modules. So first thing we do is design the system. This is where you'll see sort of our conception or concept of what the panels will look like on your roof. And this is not a final design by any stretch. It's based on a satellite image. Some things may have changed in that. The modules could be relocated if desired, or if maybe there's a roof vent or something in that place. But we're going to look at the module placement, the module and inverter selection. So we'll look at the different types of panels that we have and inverters. The estimate of energy generation by month against your home usage. That's that graph you see on the bottom. The line graph is representing the energy generation by the solar array. You see how it kind of peaks in the summer months and starts to wane back down in those winter months. And then the bar graph represents the usage of the homeowner. So net metering, as we talked about a little bit earlier, as the energy goes out to the grid, some utilities allow you to capture these credits and roll over to the next month. So in the month of April, in this example, the homeowner generated more energy than they used. So those excess credits will roll over to the next month. Depending on the utility that you have, they could roll over at full retail rate. They may roll over at a wholesale rate. And you're allowed to kind of trade these things back and forth throughout the year. But depending on the utility, that's what determines the rate that you get for that excess energy. And also some utilities do differ in the production allowed on a home. So Ameren, Missouri, for example, they have a formula that they use based on the last 12 months of your usage or the square footage of your home to determine how large of a solar array that you can have. There are certain utilities in Illinois that maybe have a 10 kW limit or something like that. So again, that's stuff that we'll all explore as we work through this. Another thing on page 2, you'll see the PV system products and energy generation. So that's sort of taking the bar graph and extrapolating that data to a full year and kind of showing you, the system size, the equipment that we're going to be using, the energy production in 1 year. It looks at your pre-solar energy consumption, so you can kind of see that annual energy offset by the solar. We estimate the electrical bill savings from the solar in year 1, and then also the savings over the lifetime of the system, which is estimated to be about 30 years. And then we also show you what the avoided utility rate would be. That means the rate that you're offsetting by going solar. And down on the bottom right-hand corner of the page 2, you'll see the cost and incentives. So talking about the incentives, the one thing that everybody is still able to apply for now is the 30% federal tax credit. It includes labor costs, system installation, interconnection, wiring, basically the system cost, right? It does not include a new roof, although some people would like that, unless there's some sort of reinforcement necessary to support the solar panels. So when we pull the structural permit, if it comes back that we need to do some additional bracing, that additional work is considered site preparation and should be allowable under that 30% federal tax credit. So there's no maximum credit, but it requires you to have that tax appetite. So if it's a nonprofit business, for example, they would not be able to recoup that 30% federal tax credit because they don't pay in for those taxes. So you must have the appetite to recoup that. A home must be owned by the taxpayer, but does not have to serve as the principal residence. It could be rental properties or something like that. And you can find more incentive details at energystar.gov or irs.gov to get more detail on that. So Ameren, Missouri provides a 25 cent per watt rebate. Systems that are installed and pass final inspection from the local jurisdiction by December 31st, 2023 kind of gets you into that window. Residential systems with a maximum kW size of 25. Commercial can go all the way up to 150. And maximum solar system size to qualify for net metering is up to 100 kW for Missouri. So an example of that rebate, and I said a lot there, an example of that would be if you have a 10 kW system, it's 25 cents per watt, it's a $2,500 rebate that comes to you from Ameren, Missouri, I think within about 90 days of the system being energized. On the Illinois side of the river, things are a little bit different. So they set a renewable portfolio standard. The state of Illinois has this goal of being 40% renewable energy on the grid by 2030. And so SRECs are a way to help them meet this goal. The SREC funding comes from the major utility companies through a small fee on customers, and it's not a tax. It's something that you pay, I guess, each month based on your usage. And that money is put into a coffer and then given back to the folks that elect to go solar and take advantage of this fantastic incentive. So the SRECs give you cash payments based on projections of future energy production for your solar array. So essentially it's a 15-year window that we're looking at. We estimate how much energy you're going to produce over the next 15 years. That energy has value. We run the calculations and say, here is your number that the state will pay you for going solar. Here's a net cost of solar example for Illinois. You can kind of see there the SREC on the upper left-hand corner there is about, call it 29%. And so that, again, that's not a set amount. It's not like the tax credit, which is just pretty easy to figure up at 30%. It is based off the amount of energy that you're producing over the course of the next 15 years. And so between those two makes up just almost 60% of the total system cost. So again, a pretty fantastic incentive. And then here's on the Missouri side, looking at the Ameren Missouri rebate. I think it was for the example that we just looked at earlier there, Eric, right? So 10 kW system is 2,500, yeah. So 30% federal tax credit, an Ameren Missouri rebate makes up about 5.5% of that. So the net cost is about 64.5%. Page 3 of the solar proposal. This sort of takes that graph we looked at and breaks it down numerically, right? So it shows you month by month what the usage was before, what your solar production is, what your net usage is after that, your charges before, and your charges afterwards. One thing that we really try to do is nail down those fees, those monthly meter fees that your utility will charge you, and that's where you see that annual non-energy charges down there below. This is probably Ameren, Missouri, if I'm looking at it right. It's $134.52. It's about $8 a month, I think, is what that comes up to be. Maybe it's Ameren, Illinois for 12. So those are things that no matter how much energy you produce, you're still not going to be able to offset those fees because they're just a base meter fee or a customer charge, as some folks would call them. So if you're looking at this, yeah, the anticipated electricity bill savings in year one would be $2,631. On page 4, we look at the payment breakdown. We look at the total payments. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. This is sort of where the financial information comes in. So you look at total payments, total incentives, net payments. Again, these are things that we've seen on previous pages, but we sort of reiterate that information. We have the estimated return on investment here at 7.8 years, which is pretty great. And then the LCOE PV generation. This is sort of a lengthy term or very verbose, but it stands for levelized cost of energy for photovoltaic generation, essentially. And I like to use this analogy of buying stuff at a big box store. Essentially, what you're doing with solar is you're bulk purchasing 30 years worth of solar power or 30 years worth of energy at 5 cents a kilowatt hour. And if you look at the utility rates from earlier, it was about 17.6, I think, there on the bottom. And so you're getting a pretty large discount for bulk purchasing that energy up front. On page 5 of the proposal, we look at the cash flow analysis, which is, again, quite a bit of information there, but it's we'll break it down. Nope. Did we go back? Can we go back one here?
Oh, sure.
Sorry about that. I thought we were going to have it zoomed in. And it's kind of hard to see that. I'm actually having trouble seeing it, but you have the project cost and you have your savings year over year over year. You have your net cost, and then all of a sudden you have at the very end here, if I can see that right, it looks like the system cost $52,000 and change. And down at the bottom there, the system has essentially returned its investment to the homeowner and then gone on to save a little over $100,000 on top of that in energy. So, that number always usually puts a smile on the face. We do offer financing through the Clean Energy Credit Union. The solar homeowner receives what we call a combination loan. So the short-term loan is taken out. It's 2 separate loans. One loan is 30% for the federal tax credit and is repaid within, I think, 18 months. The long-term loan, or you can choose 12, 15, or 20-year, and that pays for the remaining 70% of the loan. And that's the idea there is to try to keep the monthly payments as low as possible, because that federal tax credit is assumed in this case that it's going to be recouped and paid off within 18 months.
All right. Well, thank you, Patrick, for kind of going over the proposal, all the components of it, from the system design and layout to the energy savings, to then concluding here with the financial incentives and the cash versus financing option here. Feel free to drop your questions of Patrick's proposal here in the chat or the Q&A. I understand maybe the chat might not be enabled for everybody, so just drop it in the Q&A. I can read either one. I'll just kind of conclude here about our 5 easy steps to go solar with Straight Up Solar. And I hope Patrick's presentation gave you a little good sampling of what all the great information that our Straight Up Solar project developers provide to you, so you can make a clear and educated decision of solar is the right move for your energy needs and for your goals for your family. So what we do is you can get started by sharing some basic information with your home with our solar support specialist. The key ingredients are making sure that we can look at your roof to see if it's not too shady, what type of quality of the roof, what's the age of your roof structure, and then sharing your utility bill to kind of get an understanding of your energy needs here. Once we gather that information, our solar support specialist will pass it along to a project developer like Patrick here, and he'll develop that customized system layout that we just described in today's presentation here. He'll develop our proposal with a cost estimate. And if you like that cost estimate, it meets your needs, you're able to afford it either cash up front or financing through Clean Energy Credit Union. You'll sign the contract with the project developer and you'll move on to stage 3 through 5, which is our installation and project management process here. At Straight Up Solar, you're assigned an individual project manager. That person will be in communication with you from the beginning of the contract all the way to the end of the project here. So they will handle the engineering and design work. They'll also handle the permitting process. So you really don't have to do anything. You can just sit on your couch the whole time, chat back and forth with email. We're going to be the ones standing in line at the government office. We're going to be the ones talking to the utility company, making sure that we have all the proper paperwork and we get your design approved here. You don't really have to do anything, and you'll be in constant communication with our project manager here. When your permit gets approved, we'll sign you up. We'll put you on the calendar for an installation date. Right now, we're about, I'd say 16 to 20 weeks out. I think I want to say we're building, Patrick, correct me if I'm wrong, I think July 15th is kind of our early build date, somewhere between July 15th.
Yeah, I'd say July 15th is probably the earliest, maybe even pushing August 1st. We usually work at about 2-week increments. And that doesn't necessarily mean that's the date. That just means that's the window. The project schedule has lots of different holes and things. It's a lot of moving pieces, so it could potentially be sooner.
So our project manager will work that calendar. So August will come up here, and then our highly trained installation crew will help build and inspect your system here. We have a typical crew is 4 individuals and an electrician here. Like I said, half our crew are NABCEP certified. So that's all we do. We do solar day in and day out. They're highly educated, highly efficient here, and we'll be in contact with you and treat your home with respect. Again, those clear values. We want to make sure we're not only just educating, but treating our customers with respect and providing excellence in all we do here. And then when we get it installed, you're going to be able to enjoy your system, and you'll be so happy. You're going to be doing our famous solar pose. You're going to be reaching out for the sun, becoming a sun catcher, generating all that energy for your house, clean energy for your house, and helping our environment and our community with cleaner air here. So that's our 5 easy steps to go solar here. I hope that got interest you in getting a quote from Straight Up Solar. I dropped it in the Q&A as a link to you can sign on to our Get a Quote, or you can visit us at straightupsolar.com and fill out our Get a Quote form here. Our next webinar is My Home Good for Solar? It's going to be on Wednesday, March 29th with Saxon Metzger, another one of our project developer. Here in this webinar, we're going to walk you through our solar quiz from the material, looking at the materials that you have on your roof, the age of your roof, talking about your utility bill. We're going to talk about all those considerations that go into, is solar a good fit for your home here? So I will put in the Q&A a link to that registration, and we'd love for you to join us. So with that, I know we have a question, Patrick. I have a couple other questions kind of queued up for you. Y'all ready to answer them?
Yes.
All right, our first question here. Let's see here. Set it here. What if my HOA does not allow rooftop solar? Can you talk a little about those regulations?
Sure. So depending on what state you live in, there are different rules in place. Illinois has what's called a Solar Homeowners Bill of Rights, and the short answer, it's a lot more detailed, but the short answer is I don't believe they can tell you that you cannot put it on your roof. You know, it's always nice to share with them that you are interested in solar, and they can make recommendations about maybe the design or how things look on the roof, but ultimately it comes down to you, the homeowner. On the Missouri side, Eric may be able to correct me on this, but I want to say they were working on something very similar to that, where they were going to, put
Yeah,
that, say,
yeah, Patrick, last year, the Missouri legislature passed a law that is kind of similar to Illinois, that HOAs cannot ban solars, a solar array on a home here. And they
mm,
definitely, they can regulate kind of the location, and
yeah,
they can regulate the look of it, but they can't outright ban solar in a homeowners
yeah,
association now under Missouri. There's a little bit of a gray area depending on when your laws of your HOA were last enacted. If they were enacted after the law, you clearly are under the new regulation that an HOA
I see.
cannot ban rooftop solar in Missouri. The gray area is sort of like if you have an old trustees and old regulations, does the new law override that? That's our gray area.
Yeah,
We actually have a webinar on our website. If you go to Straight Up Solar YouTube page, we had a lawyer kind of discuss the new law, specifically in Missouri about HOA. But my understanding right now is that the trend is moving towards Illinois, that HOAs will not be able to ban rooftop solar in
yeah,
Missouri.
and if you are, Rick, if you are on the Missouri side, we don't. I haven't really seen that personally. I haven't seen that in a while, as far as something just being all out banned, right? It's normally a architecture review board that says, okay, we want to see it first before you install it, right? If it's got to be maybe a nice rectangle or a nice square with no sort of odds or ends pieces hanging off of the sides. They don't really like any triangle shaped stuff, and so yeah, we're more than equipped to work with that, and hopefully get you a solar array put up there.
Our next question comes from Jillian. She says, if my roof is good now, but ends up getting damaged for some reason, what happens? How does the roof get repaired and replaced?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, in this area, we get some hailstorms, maybe some strong winds, a tree branch falls or something like that. And so if that were to be the case, then that is a homeowner's insurance claim. Because, usually if your roof is damaged and, that's going to be a claim you make anyway, and a couple solar panels. So you definitely want to talk to your homeowner's insurance agent, your company, and talk, about how much those premiums may or may not increase. There are some cases where we don't see an increase at all. If it's just the case of 15, 20 years down the road or 30 years down the road, you're wanting to replace your roof, and that may be something that you would have to hire straight up solar for, to come out and remove those panels and then replace them. And that would be a cost. But if it's something natural, I want to say natural disaster related, but weather related or something like that, that the homeowner's insurance can be made, then the claim can be made, then that's what you would do.
Thank you. Patrick, got another question regarding kind of payback. I've heard the term, how does solar pay back itself? How do you calculate a payback for a solar system?
It's a little complex, but it's also simple but complex, I'll say. So, a lot of it has to do with some of the slides we looked at earlier about the orientation of the roof, the pitch of your roof, how much shade you have, the system size. Even solar is an economy of scale, and so if your price per watt is much higher when you install 8 panels versus what it would be if you installed 28 panels, right? That price per watt begins to come down the more we're putting on the roof, and so it's really hard to pinpoint an exact payback period. I think the example we looked at earlier was an Illinois example, but it was 7.8 years. I would say that goes to be around the average. I mean, there are some that we've seen that are shorter, but certainly some we've seen that are maybe a little longer than that. But it has, yeah, all those factors are at play for sure.
Got you. And then also there was another question regarding the energy generation side of our proposal here. There was a question about production factor. Can you, are different homes have different production factors depending on their orientation, or can you get a little bit into that technicality?
Yeah, absolutely. And so again, talking about those slides earlier, the production factor is basically the kilowatt hours per kit. Maybe we go back to that slide, Eric. I don't know if that's something we could pinpoint. It's a little easier to visualize. It's kilowatt hours per kilowatt installed, and that is sort of a metric of how productive the system is. For this one here, it's 1,300 kilowatt hours, or yeah, kilowatt hours per kilowatt installed. And so that's a fairly good, probably a south facing roof, minimal shade. And that is a good producing system. But again, the pitch of the roof, the shading on the roof, the latitude that we're at, that all plays in. If we install a system sort of up in the Bloomington Normal area, you might have a different production factor than if it was down in Carbondale, because of the latitude and the amount of sun hours you get per year. And so it's sort of a specific number and a little complex, but yeah.
Gotcha. And I guess our final question, Patrick, goes a little bit to our queue. You mentioned that we're kind of installing in the August timeframe a little bit here. Would that be still enough time to cash in on the Ameren, Missouri rebate if we were able to install in August?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of getting to where it's cutting close, and it's hard for me to even project and say, oh, you have 3-4 weeks to make a decision, or a month and a half to make a decision, because things are starting to pick up now. Usually we sort of see a lull in action between probably November and February. Once we're getting into the end of February, as we are now, my phone's starting to ring a little more each day, and we're talking to more folks day in and day out, and the schedule begins to start to go further and further out. And so right now, if I tell you it's August 1st or August 15th or something like that, it could be, September 15th in a matter of a couple of days. And that's just, yeah, the nature of the business, I guess. It's a good problem to have, but things are getting pretty crazy busy.
I'd imagine as the days get longer and the sun gets hotter and our energy bills keep going,
Yeah,
you're going to get more phone calls, Patrick.
right. Summertime too. I mean, people get a summertime bill when it's 110 degrees outside, and yeah, they start giving us phone calls for sure.
Great. Well, let's see here. I don't see any more questions. Again, if you have a quick question, we can drop it in the chat. Otherwise, I'll close up with our next webinar. Will be Wednesday, March 29th at 6 o'clock. Is my house good for solar? Again, feel free to give us a call here on our website at straightupsolar.com. We have the links right here in the chat to request a quote. We have also the Is Your Home Good for Solar quiz on our website here. We also have another function here where we can look at an estimate of your savings from a rooftop satellite view of your home. So check out our website. We have a lot of great engaging forms to get you interested and inspired to go solar here. And with that, I want to thank Patrick Schaaf for taking some time away from his family and joining us for what goes into a solar proposal and educating us tonight. And with that, I wish everybody a great Thursday night, and thank you very much for joining us tonight.